someone named Halloween. Halloween, who is calling in from the United States. Halloween, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's going on?
Greetings.
Hello, Halloween.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. What's going on?
Should I ask my question, or are we going to have a little conversation before?
Yeah, we're here to answer any questions you have for us, so go ahead, ask away if you got one.
Are you saying that God does not exist? Are you saying that it is impossible to know whether God exists? Or are you unable to decipher the existence of God?
Yeah, if you could speak up next time when you talk, that'd be great, because you are a little muffled. But to answer your question, am I certain that God does not exist? It depends on what kind of God, right? Am I certain that all gods don't exist? Any kind of God? No, I don't think I can have that kind of certainty. It's definitely possible that there's a God that escapes all of my known senses, right? And it's just not going to be knowable to me. So sure, that's obviously going to be a possibility. But there are certain gods, like the Christian God, that have particular claims about them that I think we can sort of debunk. So if we're talking about like Yahweh in particular, yeah, I'm fairly certain that like Yahweh doesn't exist, right? Same thing with other kinds of gods that have particular features. What's that?
My fault. Why are you saying that Yahweh does not exist?
Well, I
think omni's pretty bad. Like, it just doesn't logically make sense.
Yeah, so it gets a little complicated because Christianity is a tradition that obviously is thousands of years old, specifically 2,000 years old, I guess, and longer than that if you include the Jewish tradition. So it's going to include lots of different thinkers who have lots of different ideas about what God is. And so it's hard to talk about different God concepts. But in general, as Jamie's mentioning, right, if we're talking about a God who is omniscient, omnipresent, who also cares about humanity and wants to be in our lives, as well as like the specific stories that are described in the Bible that involve God, there's definitely, I think, evidence that leads us to believe that those stories aren't reasonable to believe is true, as well as like the claims of like God's existence and what he can do for us, I think we can demonstrate like aren't true. So it does lead me to a higher than average confidence in terms of God claims that Yahweh, isn't on the list for real gods, right?
Do you believe that it's possible for a God with the knowledge of good and evil to exist?
For a God with the knowledge of good and evil to exist? I mean, sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, really, what does that prove?
Why do you believe?
Right?
Okay, I wasn't done talking. Why would you believe that it's impossible for Yahweh to exist if Yahweh has the knowledge of good and evil?
Because the knowledge of good and evil is not good enough criteria to believe that a God exists. Like, just because it could be possible that a God could have knowledge of good and evil, that doesn't mean I should believe in Yahweh. In the same way, it doesn't mean I should believe in Cthulhu or Vishnu or any other kind of God, right?
Okay, but wait.
I mean, presuming are you a Christian?
Yeah, I'm a Christian.
Okay. Presuming that you accept your Bible, I mean, the Bible in the first chapter says that the tree would give them the knowledge of good and evil. So that didn't make...
That's the third chapter.
What now?
I'm just saying it doesn't matter, but it's the third chapter.
Okay, but yeah, but you're talking about good and evil as if it's some great, all-encompassing thing. Just knowing what is right and wrong is one thing. But what we're talking about, the Christian God goes far beyond it knowing good and evil. Great, let's pretend it does. But also, this Yahweh that you're talking about, did a lot of evil things and also created a world that we see a lot of evil in that can only be brought back to this Yahweh character. So if Yahweh's good, then he can't do evil. It's like something I told my son once. You can be a villain and you can have all type of diversity of behavior and be fine. But if you're good, you're narrowed down. So if God's going to be a good guy, he really hasn't demonstrated it in the Bible, has he? I mean, he's done some pretty evil things.
What is the definition? What is the definition of good?
Well, if we're going to get down to the definition of good, let's take something simple. I guess we could all agree that drowning all the babies and all the people on the planet is probably not a good thing. Your God did that, supposedly. Now, I don't believe it happened, but can we say that killing babies is bad? As a whole, that tends to be a rather consistent rule, isn't it?
To be desired or approved of. That's what the definition of good is.
Okay, well, if you define good, so it's
divine
arbitrary.
command theory.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, and if that's the case, then yeah, your God can be whatever he wants to be, but it really boils down to something that I've adopted in recent year or so indirectly through Kelly. Hang on a second. Hang on a second. And that is the fact that there is no valid definition of God, which is why I know Dan's an atheist and I am as well, because I've come to that realization that, and here you are bouncing around trying to redefine good. So yeah, if we start redefining good as whatever God says, then yeah, your God's good. And to me, he's an asshole. But we could ignore that and overlook that and pretend, yes, okay, your God's good and you say it exists, but it's just not very compelling to anyone else, is it?
Yeah.
We've already established that Yahweh has knowledge of good and evil.
Okay, we haven't established anything.
Yeah, we haven't established anything. We have to have, first of all, we have to know that a God exists before we can say he knows anything,
hold on,
right?
Do you believe that God...
But Halloween, do you agree that we have to,
exists?
Halloween, do you agree that we have to establish that a God even exists before we can say that he knows something, right?
Okay, so let's completely ignore that part then, because that's irrelevant.
No, it's not irrelevant. What are you talking about? I can't say, I think I know Jamie knows something if I don't even believe Jamie exists. That doesn't make any sense, right? We have to know that something exists for something to have knowledge.
Does evil exist, yes or no?
Okay, I need you to answer me now, okay? Do we have to know that something exists before we can say that something that exists can know something, yes or no?
Then answer my question.
No, actually, you can answer my question. This is my show, not yours. Would you like to talk to us? Please follow our rules.
My question is leading up to yours.
I don't care. You have to answer my question, man. It doesn't matter.
Leading up to... We're getting to your question. We're not gonna throw your question out of the picture. We're getting to that. But I'm asking a question that's leading up to your...
That's awesome. I'm asking you a question. Do we have to establish that something exists first before we can say that something that exists can know something?
Okay, so we don't know, or you don't know whether God exists.
It's really awesome that you keep ignoring me. And what's really cool is that I'm going to keep ignoring you because you are on, again, my show. So you can listen to what I have to say, or we can go ahead and drop you. It's your choice.
All right, ask your question again. I'm listening to what you're saying.
Great. Let me ask it for the 5th time, I think now. We have to know that something exists before we can say that the thing that exists knows something, right? That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it doesn't matter, right? This whole thing about knowing good or evil doesn't matter, right? We have to establish God exists first. You can say all day that God knows what's good and evil. Doesn't matter. We have to know that a God exists first. Otherwise, whatever you can say whatever you want about good and evil, right? So let's get to that first. How do we know that a God exists?
We don't. Or we can't prove that.
Oh.
That's it.
Or I can't prove that.
And I agree. And that's why we're here. That's why we don't believe in God. Why should we believe in something that we can't really prove?
Okay. Do you believe that evil exists, yes or no?
I think that people have ideas of evil, right?
Define evil.
Evil's a very culturally constructed phenomenon. Different people have different ideas of what evil means. So
not to get too Jordan Peterson on here, but yeah.
Well, it's just not consistent over time, right? What people think is evil has changed. So I don't think there's one universal definition of evil.
Do you believe that evil, whether it's killing millions of people or robbing a bank, is evil? Would you consider it evil?
I think I think killing people, millions of people especially, is a bad thing. If you do it on purpose, I think that's a bad thing.
What about armed robbery?
What about on what?
Armed robbery.
Armed robbery? Yeah, I think in
robbery.
general that's a bad thing.
Again, but
Would you put armed robbery on the same spectrum or on the same level as killing millions of people?
No, I wouldn't.
no, I'm not a moral absolutist.
Okay. But you agree that evil exists.
No,
That is an
because I don't
entity.
like
Evil is
using the word
something-
evil because evil is unilateral. I'm moral relativist.
Yeah.
There are
Hey.
harmful actions. There are helpful actions. I am all about human flourishing as a humanist. But if you say armed robbery is evil, I could probably come up with a scenario where it actually does a little more good than harm. For one, I don't give a crap about banks. They've got multi-billions and they're all insured. If the armed robbers do no actual harm to the people
why
inside, and the
armed
reason why they're
robbers
robbing a
have
bank is to
guns.
pay for cancer treatment for children, then overall that armed robbery, not really that bad of a thing.
Yeah, so again, even by Jamie's own proclamations there, right? We all have different ideas about what's right and wrong. There's not going to be an objective set of right and wrong. There's some atheists that think that. I'm not one of them. Because I just think it's just going to be different over periods of time. People think some actions are worse than others. That's just how it is.
One quick question I had for you is when you say evil, are you talking about evil in some external sense outside of action? I mean, because you say when evil exists, I mean, evil is a product. What we define as evil is usually be more of a product of an action or inaction, not something that just, it seems like a malformed question. So what you talk about when you say evil, what exactly are you trying to ask?
Do you believe that the God of the Bible is evil?
I
I
believe the
think
God
you
of the
should
Bible
answer
doesn't
Infidels.
exist, but
I think you should answer Infidel 64's question before you answer your own questions, please.
Are we getting back to the question of whether God existed?
No, well, what I'm doing now is I'm stuck on you're asking about evil and whether evil exists. Well, I think right now I'm not certain what you're saying when you talk about evil. Are you talking about evil as an entity that exists inside the world, or evil as in an observation of what we use to describe a certain action or inaction? Because I can say it's evil when Dan puts certain toppings on a pizza. Now, but does that make it evil? No, of course not. So evil's a very vague term we're flinging around. And if we're going to talk about something specific, I think I have a like to have at least a better idea of what you're saying when you're talking about, do you believe in evil? Do you think this is more evil than that? Well, what do we mean? Or are we playing a game where we're just shuffling under some little pods and pick a hand? Playing a Monte game? I mean, because evil keeps changing what you're saying, because evil is not one uniform thing in my eyes, but I'm asking for you.
And, one of you said that the God of the Bible is impossible.
Oh, yeah, I would agree with that.
You've already...
Hey, I'm not interested in having a conversation with you if you're not going to answer people. This is your last chance. Are you willing to listen to what we have to say and answer our questions? Are you going to completely ignore them and ask your own questions?
I'll listen. My fault.
Okay. Now, evil. You have a specific idea about evil, right? You're trying to ask us about evil. What's your idea of evil? That's all Infidel 64 is asking. What do you mean when you talk about evil?
How do I put evil into...
You're the one asking questions
Yeah,
about
yeah,
it. So
well,
what
If
do
you can't
you
define
you
it,
tell
how do
me
you
what your
expect us to
word
be able
you're
to make a
using means.
decision on it?
Yeah, it's on you, man. You tell us.
We're both asking questions.
Evil's not a word I throw around very often in day-to-day conversations. So to me, defining evil would be rather vague and non-specific and wouldn't tell me a damn thing about what you think of evil.
Right.
So what is it?
The opposite of something that is to be desired or approved of.
Okay.
Ah.
Okay. And you would say human desires?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
What other desires would there be?
Well, there's
I don't
other.
know.
I mean, there's other life on Earth that has desires, right? Human beings aren't the only things that have desires. Also, if you believe in a God, they might have desires. There's some Christians that say
Are
that.
animals capable of doing good and evil?
Well, that's a separate question, right? But like, I'm just pointing out the fact that Christians often
That's
say.
what I'm saying. What's the point of mentioning animals?
Because there are some people
You're
that take the
mentioning it.
consideration of animal interests into morality, right? Presumably, if you have a dog or a cat, right, and you just kick them and just abuse them, right, a lot of people would say, hey, that's an evil thing to do, right? So animal interests do matter for some kinds of moral calculus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to end this conversation. I'm getting yeah. I'm sorry.
All right. Fine.
Nah, it's not. Yeah.
Yeah. What I would suggest is that you focus on your listening skills, okay? Because when you're talking, you're not really listening to other people. And we're all here for you, okay? We have a call-in show where we talk to all kinds of people and are willing to entertain all kinds of topics and all kinds of conversations. We don't like it when we put a very thoughtful response to your questions and then you just respond with a completely separate line of questioning, right? Because then it just completely invalidates us. It doesn't tell us that you're actually listening. So if you're interested in calling us back again, I advise you to please try to have a conversation with us. If you come in here with just an agenda to try to prove us wrong, it's not going to go your way.
It does feel like you're trying to set us up for some kind of gotcha.
Yeah.